Alright YouTube, I'm making this video for all the guys out there struggling to put a coil spring back in a first gen Dakota. I searched the internet, probably like y'all did. I searched YouTube. There's a couple of videos out there, but I think that they're not as informative as they could be. I thought about making this video while I was trying to do it, but there's no way. If you've ever tried to do this, you'll know that trying to worry about a video camera and all the rest while you're trying to do this is not possible. So here's the process. So I'm in the middle of a whole truck project, as you see, but so I painted the lower control arm and I replaced the ball joints, and I got drop spindles from Beltec and new upper control arms and all that mess. But I got V8 coil springs because I'm putting a V8 where a 4-cylinder was in this truck. Otherwise I probably wouldn't have gone through all this trouble. But as you might imagine, the V8 coil spring is pretty stiff compared to a 4-cylinder coil spring. So using a bunch of other people's advice and tips and tricks, I've come to this point. So I've got one in over there. That was the huge struggle. This one wasn't as bad because I learned a couple of things along the way. So the first thing that makes it possible is this spring compressor. That's it right there. You get them from Advanced Auto Parts, AutoZone, whatever. Rent a tool, loan a tool. Easy peasy, right? So you got to put it down through where the shock mounts, and you keep the non-threaded piece up on top. And these arms aren't really doing anything because this block right here is keeping it from going down in there. So the arms are just dangling. So that's the first key. Get it down through there. This block right here, that one right there, is the threaded piece, right? So the threaded piece, the arms, you're going to grab it. And what I found is the orientation of these arms, you see how this one is pointing towards me, the other one's of course 180 out. That's important because I've tried it with them sort of in plane with the frame. It didn't want to compress it as well. I had to back off and start all over. So that's important. I think maybe 45 degrees off from the frame is optimum from what I found. So you compress the spring, make sure it's seated up onto the isolator before you do anything else. So start compressing it, and then you get your control arm up in there, and make sure that your end of your spring is down in that pocket. And so that's where this floor jack comes in. You keep this lower control arm, you keep pressure on the bottom of that spring as you're going up. As you're compressing the spring, what I did is I turned about 12 times on the ratchet, which is about 3 turns maybe of the screw, and then came down here and I jacked up the floor jack a couple times just to keep that spring in the pocket of this lower control arm. So a little bit up here, a little bit down here on the jack. Work your way up. Make sure that as you're going up, you're in orientation. Now the third key component is that come along right there. You see I've got it hooked in the bottom of that spring pocket over there, and I've got it hooked to the spring itself, because you see how, if you've done this, you see how that spring is kind of bent at its normal position when it's compressed. So you've got to keep that spring pulled inboard as you're going up. So that's where the come along goes in. So you're running around doing the ratchet on the top, compressing the coil spring, you're jacking up the floor jack, and then you're putting a couple of clicks on this come along. Now, you're not, once you get it set in there at first, you don't have to crank it but just a few times, but you got to be cognizant of where everything is at. And so you need to keep, and what helps you is to look at your bushings and look at the holes in the center of your bushings, and as you're trying to get them up in there, most likely the holes for the bushings are going to start out here, and then as you come up, they're going to kind of creep up this way. And you can use your hammer to tap on the lower control arm and kind of ease it in there. But the first bolt I got in was the front bolt, and then I was able to get a punch in the back hole and then work it in. It's not by any means easy at all. I'm soaked with sweat right now. It is 90 degrees, but still, this is not an easy job. But in my case, it's necessary because I got to change the spring rate on the truck. So I hope this helps somebody. I wish I had it before I started. It really would have helped me. But this is the fun part, right? So hit me up in the comments if you need any other advice.